Hey, everyone, and welcome to the show. Have you ever felt like there's this invisible rule book for moms?
Yeah.
One that says you should just instinctively know what your baby needs. Be there for them every second of the day.
Right.
And somehow manage to keep a smile on your face while doing it all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the good mother myth in action.
And it's a myth that's been around for a surprisingly long time.
Yeah.
Deeply embedded in our cultural understanding of motherhood.
Okay.
Nancy Reddy's book, The Good Mother Myth,
Yeah.
takes us on this fascinating journey through the history of this myth, exploring where these often unspoken expectations came from
Yeah.
and how they continue to shape our experiences of motherhood today.
It's so interesting, right? Like,
It really is.
I feel like every generation kind of thinks they're the ones
Yeah,
that are dealing with this pressure for the first time.
totally.
But it's been going on for a while.
It's been going on for centuries.
And we're going to uncover some surprising research,
Yeah.
debunk some popular beliefs, and maybe even question some of our own assumptions about motherhood.
Yeah.
And get this, we're even going to talk about monkey moms.
Monkey moms.
All right,
They
so
are fascinating.
you know what I think is so interesting about this book is how it connects scientific research,
Right. Why?
cultural trends,
Yeah.
and personal experience to paint a really nuanced picture of motherhood.
Yeah.
So it's not just about pointing fingers at who created this myth,
Yeah.
but about understanding how we've all inherited it and what we can do to challenge it.
That's right.
So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Our first stop takes us back to the 1950s,
Okay.
to the lab of psychologist Harry Harlow and his experiments with baby monkeys.
Right.
Now, these experiments were controversial,
Yeah, they were.
but they had a huge impact on how we think about attachment.
They really did.
So tell me a little bit about Harlow's work.
So Harlow separated baby monkeys from their mothers
Okay.
and gave them two surrogate mothers to choose from. One was a wire mother that provided food,
Okay.
and the other was a soft cloth mother that offered only comfort.
All right. I think I know what's coming next.
You can probably guess what happened next.
The baby monkeys clung to the cloth mother, right?
Exact.
Even though it didn't give them any food.
Yes.
It's like they were saying, I'd rather feel loved and safe than have a full belly.
Exactly. This led to the popular belief that a mother's primary role is to provide constant contact and comfort. But here's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Reddy argues that while Harlow's research was groundbreaking in some ways, it also contributed to an oversimplified and potentially damaging view of motherhood.
Okay.
The always available, perfect mother ideal that we're still grappling with today.
That's like we took this research, which was conducted on monkeys,
Right.
and applied it wholesale to human mothers,
Right.
without taking into account all the complexities of human relationships and societal structures.
Yeah.
It's almost as if we forgot that human mothers are well human.
And that's a crucial point.
Right.
We can't separate these scientific findings from the historical contents in which they emerged.
Okay.
This research came out during the post-World War II era,
Right.
when women were being encouraged to return to their domestic roles after contributing so significantly to the war effort.
It's like there was this societal push to get women back in the home.
Right.
And this research about the importance of a mother's constant presence fit perfectly into that narrative.
Exactly.
It almost seems too perfect.
Corey, it's fascinating how scientific research can become intertwined with societal trends,
Yeah.
shaping our expectations and even influencing public policy.
Okay.
Think about how this research on baby monkeys influenced the way we think about childcare,
Right.
working mothers, and the role of fathers.
It makes you wonder if the perfect mother myth was a convenient way to get women back into traditional roles, to keep the workforce structured a certain way.
That's a really insightful observation.
I mean, it's something to think about, right?
It is.
When we
It's important to question these narratives and understand how they've shaped our perceptions of motherhood.
Yes, definitely.
And speaking of narratives, let's move on to John Bowlby and his hugely influential attachment theory.
So Bowlby, working with troubled children, emphasized the importance of a continuous and warm relationship with the mother for healthy child development.
Right.
But, and this is where things get a bit tricky,
Okay.
a lot of his theory was based on anecdotal evidence and observations of primates,
Right.
which, as we know, have very different caregiving practices than humans.
Very different.
And yet, despite these methodological limitations,
Right.
Bowlby's work had a profound impact on the way we think about child development.
It really did.
He even went so far as to say that a mother's full-time employment is as detrimental to a child's development as war or famine.
Wow.
That's a pretty strong statement.
It is.
It almost feels like it reinforces this idea that a mother's place is in the home,
Yeah.
solely dedicated to her children.
Right.
And that any deviation from that is somehow harmful.
And that's the danger of extrapolating research findings without considering the nuances and limitations.
Okay.
Bowlby's work, while valuable in some ways, also contributed to this sense of pressure and guilt that many mothers feel,
Right.
making them question their choices and their ability to be good mothers.
It's almost like mothers are stuck in a double bind.
Yeah.
They're told to be constantly present for their children, but then they're also criticized for not contributing to the workforce or pursuing their own ambition.
Exactly.
So what are they supposed to do?
And this brings us to Mary Ainsworth Bowlby's colleague, who developed the strange situation experiment to measure attachment styles in infants.
Okay, so tell me more about this strange situation. It sounds a bit ominous.
Well, it was essentially an observation of how infants reacted to being separated from and reunited with their mothers in a controlled setting.
Okay.
Ainsworth, building on Bowlby's work, identified different attachment styles: secure, anxious, and avoidant, based on the baby's reactions.
So if your baby cried when you left the room, but calmed down quickly upon your return, they were labeled as securely attached.
Yes.
But if they continued to cry inconsolably, they might be labeled as anxious.
Exactly.
And while the strange situation became hugely influential in developmental psychology,
It did.
it also had its limitations.
Absolutely.
The sample size was small, it was culturally limited, and it relied on a single artificial observation. And yet, despite these flaws, these labels, secure, anxious, avoidant, became widely used.
They did?
Almost like a judgment on a mother's parenting skills. I can only imagine how stressful it must have been for mothers to try and decipher their baby's behavior through this lens.
It's easy to see how these categories, while intended to be descriptive, could easily be interpreted as prescriptive, adding to the pressure mothers already felt to raise perfect children.
So they're already feeling this pressure to be perfect mothers.
Yeah.
And now they're being told that their baby's behavior is a reflection of them. And that's something Reddy really digs into.
How this quest for perfect motherhood, fueled by research that wasn't always perfect itself, created a generation of stressed out moms.
It's almost like this research, while well-intentioned, inadvertently contributed to the booming parenting advice industry. Parents seeking reassurance and validation turn to experts for guidance. But in doing so, they often found themselves overwhelmed by conflicting advice and ever-changing trends.
Exactly. It's like this constant pursuit of the right way to parent can actually make us feel more insecure and less confident in our own abilities.
It's like we're always second-guessing ourselves, wondering if we're doing enough, if we're doing it right. And speaking of parenting experts, we can't forget Dr. Benjamin Spock and his iconic book, Baby in Childcare.
Oh, yes. Dr. Spock.
Remember that famous line, "Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do."
Such a classic.
It's like he was giving permission to all these mothers to just trust their gut.
Dr. Spock's book was revolutionary for its time. He offered a more gentle and intuitive approach to parenting, encouraging mothers to trust their instincts rather than adhering to rigid schedules or harsh disciplinary methods.
It sounds like he was trying to empower mothers.
He was.
To give them a sense of confidence in their own abilities.
Absolutely.
But Reddy points out this interesting paradox in Spock's work.
Oh, really?
While he encouraged self-reliance, he also, perhaps unintentionally, contributed to this growing dependence on expert advice.
I see what you mean.
By writing a book that offered guidance on every aspect of child rearing, he inadvertently created this need for external validation. Feeding into this idea that we need experts to tell us how to be good parents.
Precisely. It's like he gave mothers permission to trust themselves, but then also provided them with a 500-page manual on how to do everything.
Exactly.
It's no wonder mothers felt like they needed more and more expert advice.
So where do we go from here? If all this research and expert advice is feeding into this unattainable ideal of the good mother, is there another way to think about motherhood?
That's the question Reddy explores in her book. She challenges us to look beyond the individualistic Western model of motherhood and consider alternative ways of raising children. And that's where Margaret Mead comes in.
Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, right?
Yes.
Tell me more about her perspective.
So Mead's research focused on diverse cultural practices and the role of community in raising children.
Okay.
She challenged the Western notion of the nuclear family as the ideal, pointing to societies where child care is shared among multiple caregivers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors.
It takes a village.
Creating a network of support for both mothers and children.
That's such a different model from what we're used to.
It is.
It's like we've isolated mothers,
right,
placing all the responsibility on their shoulders.
Yeah.
When in reality, raising children has always been a communal effort.
Historically, it has been.
Right.
And this communal approach has a lot of benefits.
Like what?
It can reduce stress on individual mothers,
Okay.
provide children with a wider range of social experiences, and foster a stronger sense of community.
Mead even practiced what she preached.
He did.
Living in a composite household
Right.
with another. It takes a village, right?
It does.
It's not just about the mother.
Yeah.
It's about creating a network of support. A community where everyone contributes and shares the responsibility.
And that's a key takeaway from Reddy's book. The good mother myth thrives in isolation.
Okay.
When mothers are cut off from support, when they're made to feel like they have to do everything on their own,
Right.
that's when the myth becomes most powerful.
It's like we've created this system where mothers are set up to fail.
Yeah.
We tell them they need to be everything to their children, but then we don't provide them with the support they need to actually do that.
And that's where the personal becomes political.
Okay.
Reddy doesn't shy away from sharing her own experiences as a mother.
Yeah.
The exhaustion, the guilt, the conflicting advice, the longing for personal fulfillment beyond child-rearing.
It's like she's saying, look, I'm a mother and I've felt all these things too. You're not alone.
Exactly. And by sharing her own struggles, she connects these individual experiences to the larger social and economic structures that perpetuate the good mother myth.
So it's not just about individual mothers needing to change their mindset.
No.
It's about changing the systems that keep them trapped in this cycle of guilt and self-doubt.
We're talking about the lack of affordable childcare,
Hey.
the pressure on women to prioritize motherhood, above all else, the gender wage gap.
Yeah.
All of these factors contribute to the overwhelm and inadequacy that many mothers feel.
It's like we're sending mothers this message.
Yeah.
You're responsible for raising the next generation.
Right.
But we're not going to give you the support you need to do it well.
And that's why Reddy argues that challenging this myth requires more than just individual effort. It demands systemic change. We need policies that support families, affordable childcare, paid parental leave, flexible work arrangements. These are not just women's issues. They're family issues, societal issues.
I love how Reddy doesn't just critique the good mother myth.
Yeah.
She actually offers a vision for a different kind of motherhood.
She does.
One that's more realistic, more sustainable, and more fulfilling.
She calls for a reimagining of motherhood beyond the narrow, idealized image of the self-sacrificing supermom.
Okay.
It's about embracing diverse experiences,
Yeah.
accepting imperfections, and recognizing the value of community and shared care.
It's about giving ourselves permission to be human rights,
Yes.
to have good days and bad days, to ask for help, to pursue our own interests alongside caring for our children.
Yes. It's about redefining good motherhood as something that's both fulfilling and sustainable.
Yeah.
For both mothers and their children.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that a happy, well-adjusted child doesn't require a martyr for a mother.
You know, one thing that really resonated with me in the book
Yeah.
was Reddy's discussion of how the pressure to be the perfect mother can actually prevent us from being good mothers.
Right.
It's like this constant striving for an ideal can make us lose sight of what our children really need. Our presence, our love, our acceptance.
It's like we get so caught up in following the rules, in doing everything right, that we forget to just be present with our children.
Right.
To enjoy the messy, beautiful chaos of family life.
And that pressure to be perfect can also prevent us from seeking help when we need it.
Absolutely.
It's like we're afraid to admit that we're struggling, that we're not coping.
Yeah.
Because that would mean we're not good mothers.
That's such an important point. The good mother myth creates this culture of silence and shame.
Right.
Which prevents mothers from reaching out for support.
Yeah.
From connecting with others who might be going through similar experiences.
I think a lot of mothers feel like they have to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
Like it's a badge of honor to be exhausted, overwhelmed, and on the verge of a breakdown.
It's seen as a sign of dedication.
But Reddy's book reminds us that it's okay to ask for help,
Yes.
to admit that we can't do it all.
And that's what I appreciate so much about her approach. It's not about adding more pressure, more things for mothers to do or be. It's about giving them permission to let go of the impossible standards, to embrace the imperfections, to find what works for them and their families.
One of the things Reddy talks about
Okay.
is how this pressure to be the perfect mother can show up in all these unexpected ways.
Right.
Like the pressure to breastfeed exclusively,
Yes.
to have a natural birth, to make all your baby's food from scratch.
It's like this idea that if you're not doing everything naturally, if you're not sacrificing your own well-being for your child's, then you're somehow failing.
It creates this culture of judgment, doesn't it?
It does.
Where mothers feel like they're constantly being scrutinized and compared to some impossible standard.
Right.
It makes me think of that saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
And it prevents mothers from celebrating their own unique journeys, their own individual choices.
Right.
It creates this sense of competition and inadequacy rather than a sense of community and support.
Right. It's like you're supposed to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
To endure the pain and exhaustion as a badge of honor.
And that's simply not healthy or sustainable. Reddy even shares her own experience with postpartum depression.
Oh, wow.
A topic that's often stigmatized and misunderstood.
Yeah.
She writes about the rage, the anxiety, the feeling of being disconnected from her own child.
Postpartum depression is a real medical condition, not a character flaw.
It is.
It's not something that mothers can simply snap out of or control.
Right.
But the good mother myth can make it incredibly difficult for women to seek help.
Absolutely. They feel like they're supposed to be these glowing, blissful mothers, and anything less than that is a sign of weakness.
Right.
They might worry that they'll be judged, that their children will be taken away, that they'll be seen as unfit mothers.
Reddy also challenges this idea that a mother's love for her child is always instant and automatic.
Yeah.
She describes how her own love for her children grew gradually over time and how it wasn't always easy or effortless.
That's such an important point, and one that I think a lot of mothers can relate to.
Yeah.
It normalizes the messy realities of motherhood.
Right.
The fact that sometimes it takes time to bond with your baby, that sometimes those feelings of love aren't as intense as we expect them to be.
And it's okay to admit that it's hard sometimes, right?
Of course.
That you don't always feel that overwhelming, all-consuming love that you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
This doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you human.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that love is a verb. It's something that we cultivate and nurture over time.
Okay.
It's not just a feeling. It's a choice, a commitment, a series of actions.
And sometimes those actions might look different than what we expect.
Right.
They might involve setting boundaries, asking for help, prioritizing our own well-being.
And that's where community comes in. Reddy talks about the importance of shared care.
Yeah.
Drawing inspiration from Margaret Mead's research on the benefits of a communal approach to child rearing.
It's about recognizing that we don't have to do this alone. We're not meant to do this alone.
We're not.
Raising children is a communal effort. It takes a village to raise a child.
Exactly. It's about creating a network of support, friends, family, neighbors, babysitters, teachers, who can share the load and offer a different perspective.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength.
It's about building a community where mothers can feel seen, heard, and supported.
Yes.
Where they can share their struggles and celebrate their triumphs without fear of judgment.
And that's what Reddy is ultimately calling for.
Okay.
A reimagining of motherhood that's more inclusive, more realistic, and more empowering.
It's about creating a world where mothers can thrive, not just survive.
And where children can thrive too, surrounded by a community of love and support.
You know, one of the things that really stood out to me in the book was Reddy's story about the orangutan mother Kawan,
Oh, yes.
who rejected her baby.
Right.
It made me realize that even in the animal kingdom, motherhood isn't always this instinctual, unwavering force.
It's a powerful story that challenges our assumptions about maternal instinct.
Yeah.
And highlights the importance of environment and social support.
Okay.
Remember, the zookeepers believe that Kawan might have been able to care for her baby if she had had a more experienced mother to guide her.
It's like even monkey moms need mentors.
They do.
It just goes to show that no mother's born knowing everything.
Right.
We all need guidance, support, and a little bit of grace, as we navigate this journey called motherhood.
Exactly. And that brings us back to Reddy's central argument.
Okay.
The myth of the good mother sets up unrealistic expectations, not just for mothers, but for society as a whole.
Right.
We expect mothers to be all-knowing, all-giving, and endlessly selfless without acknowledging the challenges they face or the support they need.
And it's this idealized image of motherhood, this impossible standard, that prevents us from having honest conversations about the realities of motherhood, the joys, the struggles, the complexities. So if the good mother is a myth, as Reddy so convincingly argues, where do we go from here?
Right.
How do we challenge this deeply ingrained narrative and create a more supportive and realistic environment for mothers?
Well, I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing that this myth exists, understanding its origins and its impact, that's the first step towards dismantling it.
Okay.
We need to stop judging ourselves and each other against this impossible standard.
It's like giving ourselves permission to throw out the rule book, right?
Exactly.
To embrace the messiness and unpredictability of motherhood.
Yeah.
To trust our instincts and make choices that work for our families, even if they don't align with the perfect mother ideal.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the guilt and the self-doubt and recognizing that there's no one right way to mother. Every child is different. Every family is different. And what works for one may not work for another.
It's about recognizing our own limitations, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Admitting that we can't do it all, that we need help, that we need support.
And it's about advocating for policies that recognize the value of caregiving, that provide mothers with the resources and support they need to thrive. Affordable childcare, paid parental leave, flexible work arrangements. These are not just women's issues. They're family issues, societal issues.
It's about shifting our cultural mindset. Recognizing that raising children is a collective responsibility, not just the burden of individual mothers.
It takes a village.
It's about building communities where mothers feel supported, not judged.
And it's about celebrating the diversity of motherhood. Acknowledging that there are many different ways to be a good mother.
I love that. It's not about striving for some unattainable ideal. But about finding our own path, our own way of being a mother that feels authentic and fulfilling.
And recognizing that motherhood is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
There will be ups and downs, challenges and triumphs. And it's okay to ask for help along the way.
You know, Reddy's book made me realize that we need to be kinder to ourselves. To each other and to mothers everywhere.
Absolutely.
We need to let go of the judgment, the comparisons, the pressure to conform to some impossible standard.
It's about creating a culture of empathy and support. Where mothers feel safe to share their experiences. To ask for help, to celebrate their victories and acknowledge their struggles.
And maybe, just maybe, by dismantling this myth of the good mother, we can create a world where motherhood is less about perfection and more about connection.
I love that.
Less about self-sacrifice and more about self-discovery.
A world where mothers can thrive, not just survive.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the good mother myth.
It was a good one.
What a thought-provoking and insightful book.
I agree.
It's definitely made me rethink some of my own assumptions about motherhood.
Me too.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. What resonated with you? What surprised you? Let us know.
Head over to the comments and share your favorite takeaway from the show.
Yes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Please do.
And please share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful.
We appreciate it.
Until next time, keep diving deep.